I want to welcome everybody. This is our 13th Future Thought Leader panel discussion by Very Good Food in conjunction with UCTV. Thank you for that partnership. Today, during Indigenous Heritage Week and Native American Heritage Month, we're proud to present Ancestral Pathways, exploring the indigenous roots of regeneration, co-sponsored by Indigenous Regeneration and the World Design Capital. Before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the artists behind the artwork that you see on the stage behind me. Kenneth Banks is a Kumeyaay artist. This is from a mural that he made called Honoring Our Ancestors. He's responsible for the graphics of today's entire panel. This features mostly Kumeyaay imagery, plus 2 of his own personal images from his own personal healing journey. So thank you for that, Kenneth. Now I would like to make an acknowledgement. Very Good Food community holds great respect for the land and the original people of the area where our event is being held today. UCSD Park and Market was built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego and Baja community. We acknowledge their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their dedicated stewardship. I would love to begin by introducing the panelists that have joined me on stage here today. On my far right, I have Lacey Ray Cannon. She's the founder and executive director of Indigenous Regeneration. She's the co-creator of the Kumiai Ethnobotany board game, which you may have seen on the table on the far left, and if you haven't, I highly recommend it. Documenting Luhunt elder Richard Bugby's knowledge. And Bug left us last year, and this is a beautiful tribute to his life work. She's also the manager of the Matayum Paradise Valley Farm, hosting community building events focused on food and land sovereignty, sustainable development, and education. Thank you, Lacey. Then I have James Skeet. He's the co-founder of Covenant Pathways, establishing Spirit Farm on the Navajo Nation. He's a farmer and educator, reclaiming traditional farming and spiritual practices paired with regenerative methods to combat food insecurity and health concerns. He's also the author of Disrupted by Nature, Distracted by Nature, Distracted by Ego. Thanks for that correction, and thank you for joining us. And on my right, I have Dr. Lila June Johnston, mostly Lila June. She is an Indigenous musician, scholar, and community organizer of Diné, Navajo. And I cannot say, thank you, Cheyenne, for me, perdón, and European lineages. She's the co-author and narrator of Possibilities of Regeneration, one of the Kiss the Ground short animated films. She's a graduate of both Stanford and New Mexico University, specifically focused on how pre-colonial indigenous nations shaped and created abundant food and animal supply systems. She was recently featured in the award-winning follow-up documentary to Kiss the Ground, Common Ground. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
On my left is Dr. Elena Huambachano. She is a native Peruvian indigenous scholar. She is the author of the book in front of me and on the table to the left, Recovering Our Ancestral Foodways, Indigenous Traditions as a Recipe for Living Well. She's an assistant professor of Native American and Indigenous Studies at Syracuse University, focusing on Indigenous food sovereignty and research methodologies as part of the Global Indigenous Cultures and Environmental Justice Department and Center. Thank you, Maria Elena. To her left is Mirna Borrego. She is a visual storyteller for the San Antonio and Necua community of Kumiai, located in the Valle de Guadalupe. She's a partner in the Sagebrush Defense project, also in the Valle de Guadalupe, and she's a graphics contributor of the Living Community Cookbook, a biocultural collection of traditional Kumeyaay recipes, traditions, and practices. Thank you, Mirna, for coming and joining it. And finally, on my far left, Adam Uribe. He's the founder of Red Earth Movement, dedicated to healing the land and its people. He's a multi-generational seed holder with a lifetime of experience in regenerative agriculture passed to him by his father and his father's father before him. He's the founder of Red Earth Ovens, creating custom ovens with red clay harvested directly from the earth in an age-old sustainable method. Thank you, Adam, and thanks to all of my panelists. I want to say that every time we have a panel discussion like this, I know that I've done my job well if everyone on stage is far more knowledgeable on the subject we're to discuss than I am, and it's never been more true than today. And I'm very excited to have the people that we've gathered here. When we began the idea, or the idea began to have this dialogue, we were focused on this new trend, this modern dialogue around regenerative agriculture, which we see as something new, but we also recognize isn't. And to me and to our organization, it seemed appropriate to trace that regenerative movement back to its roots, its indigenous roots. Where did these concepts come from? But also, as I discussed and as I individually spoke with each of the panelists and as we collectively gathered and spoke together, it occurred to me that there's so much more to say on this topic than I even could have imagined. That we're not just talking about the origins of regenerative agriculture, but we're talking about the extraction that is regenerative agriculture and what was left behind. The cosmology, the spirituality, the holistic integration, the notion that we live with and in conjunction with nature and that we are not separate from it. So today, I'm very pleased to tell you that we have people who, on every aspect, we have academics, advocates, and people with their hand in the soil, or sometimes all of the above, who are here to talk to you about their experiences, their knowledge of history, of the current moment, and where we go from here. So with that, I want to start with you, Lila, because I think, and I really enjoyed the way that you presented sort of the history and dispelling some of the myths about what this land was like before the Europeans arrived.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so at Eshik aro shidene eshe Lila Junior aro nanisht eje trachinishle tsatses bashichin ashi hedeshedo bilagana edeshanale Taos New Mexico dent na shakwit ego de nes anishle. So I'm a Nanisht Ejetachitni clan from the Dene Nation with my Dene relative here. And that clan is given to us by our mothers, where we get our last names from our mothers, not from our fathers. And we're also incorrectly known as Navajo, but we always state our clans before we speak. But anyways, I really have been trying hard to dispel the myth of the primitive Indian, this idea that there were just a few scattered nomads walking around what was mostly terra nullius, and really re-educating people that we densely populated this continent prior to Columbus's arrival, and we managed the land extensively. Sorry to use the word manage. We were talking about that last night. But meaning we curated vast gardens. We were clipping, pruning, burning, thinning, selecting, augmenting, and designing edible ecosystems to feed both ourselves, but also it was non-human centric. So it was really about feeding all life and making sure all of our relatives had enough to eat. And ironically, by not putting ourselves as centers of the universe, we were actually more wealthy because we were creating abundance for all things, and then we got to dip our cup into that abundance from time to time as well. So we have lots of examples. I'll just give a couple of ancient food systems that were not like wilderness. You know, a lot of people think when colonists got here, they often said, wow, it's just a splendid natural park. It's just this beautiful, abundant fishery that God has just magically created, which, you know, Creator did magically create, but with the heavy assistance of these human hands, where we were not a virus to the earth, we were an asset to the earth, and we were so good to the earth that when we went away, she missed us. And I believe that's our purpose as all of humanity, is that we can step up to the plate and be those regenerative beings and be so good to the earth that she needs us, and we could be those keystone species. So, for example, we have fossilized pollen records that show from Maine down to Georgia that the chestnut trees were not wild. They were actually planted by humans. And maintained by humans, because we can see about 3,000 years ago, there's not much chestnut pollen in the record. And then all of a sudden, 3,000 years ago, there's all this chestnut pollen, and then this influx of hickory nut pollen, this influx of black walnut pollen, just showing that there's this in creation of a biodiverse food forest. And we also see fossilized charcoal come into the record, indicating that they were managing this forest by spacing the trees properly and burning in between to maintain grasslands and to, when you have trees too close together, they can get sick and compete. So that's one example of how human beings have created beautiful systems. Another example is the clam gardens of the Pacific Northwest, which are also 3,000 years old. The chestnut farms were or groves, I like to call them, 3,000 years old. But they can augment clam habitat in the Pacific Northwest by building these intertidal rock walls where water will come up, and then as it's receding, the tide's going down, those rock walls will capture sediment and water and leave these really cool, warmer, calmer pools that clams thrive in. So one study found that 35% of Quadra Island, which is a huge part just north of Vancouver, had these anthropogenic clam gardens. And in that way, human beings created and augmented clam habitat. And again, the oldest one of these is 3,500 years old that we know of. So this is an ancient technology. And we were just talking with our Kumiai elder last night, and he said this whole area used to be tended by oak, by the different clans would tend the oak groves. And the abalone farms were not just accidental, they were tended and gardened, and that natural life-bearing capacity of the earth was intentionally augmented, systematically augmented. So those are just some examples, and of course, you know, there's a million more examples I could give, case studies of ways human beings have been so good to the earth, and that we were a gift to the earth. And I think the point of going back in history is to show that if we've done it before, we can do it again.
Yes, thank you. And I think that information about that these trees were in fact planted in the east, planted and tended in the west, that they were managed, that this was part of a fully integrative system, I think was certainly lost on the original people who came here from Europe, and quite frankly, lost in large part to much of the modern history as it's related. So it's so important. And I'm glad that you also said that as we look back, we can see what is possible, that we can become not sort of a draw on the earth, but in fact a positive and beneficial inhabitant of the earth, which is something contrary to the way, in large part, we tend to be living today. And I'm glad that you mentioned Dr. Rodriguez. Dr. Stan Rodriguez was supposed to be on our panel today, but he found himself unable to join us. He is a Kumeyaay elder. Maybe he will be here for the second half. We hope so. But I'm glad also that you mentioned that. So I failed to say this in the beginning, that the group that we've assembled here are people from different traditions within the local Kumeyaay community, both sides of the border, communities within the region and the nation, as well as international. So on my left, I have Dr. Maria Elena, who represents both a Peruvian and a New Zealand background. So I thought it was essential, as we had this dialogue, not simply to talk about the local experience, though it's clearly essential, but also to talk about regional, national, and global, both practices, and it turns out there are common threads that she discovered in her work. So I don't know if you'd like to talk a little bit about what you're doing in your work.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, often at times we tend to mostly think about North America and South America and forget about other indigenous peoples. So in my work, what I've learned is that we have shared traditions that we embrace, and in the case of my book, I find out that there is one specific treasure food crop that unifies my people in South America with Maori, Aotearoa, New Zealand. So from Oceania all the way to South America. And it wasn't because I immigrated to Aotearoa when I was very young with my sister. I couldn't have heard about those stories, or they couldn't know about our background. And I'm talking about back in, it was 1998, and we were the very first Peruvians immigrating in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And it wasn't because of these conversations that we had with a Maori elder who asked us where I'm from, and we said, I'm from Peru. And that's when this conversation began about, have you heard about this food crop? Maori is called kumara, and in Spanish is camote, and in English is sweet potato. And I said, of course, I know what camote is, of course. And he looked at me and said, well, I don't know about that. Because in our travel stories, in our songs, our proverbs, and we actually know and treasure the sweet potato, because when our ancestors immigrated from Polynesia to what is now Aotearoa, they brought with them different food crops, taros, kumara, and the one that actually flourished in Aotearoa was the kumara, because of the warm weather, and that because of that specific treasure food crop, they were able to survive in these different terrains. And so for us, we look at each other and said, well, it's not us demanding or pretending to say we own or this is our food crop, but actually we realized that we inherited this precious gift. And regardless of whether Maori traveled south or my ancestors traveled to Polynesia, we have this beautiful heritage, this gift. Food is a gift for us, it's medicine. And it's our responsibility to look after it. And the book begins with that story, but the book unfolds an indigenous philosophy of life. And now that we talk about, and actually now it's been happening with climate change conferences, and we talk about sustainable development, and when we talk about going back to the past and learning about those philosophies, the concept of sustainable development, which was coined in 1996, in a time that we were understanding that we need to do something about it, otherwise the next generation will not see the earth. That concept is not new for indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples are the architects of lifeways. The concept of sustainable development resonates and is ingrained in indigenous philosophies of life, whether it's in Aotearoa for some people, Maoriora, for Quechua is Ayin Cauce, or Suma Cauce in South America, or Minovida Wisami in North America. All these philosophies of life tell us and explains different philosophies, and also discusses about how to embrace economies of well-being, environmental sustainability. When it comes to politics also, understanding that the rivers and mountains, they have agency, they have rights. We talk about rights of Mother Nature. So when we talk about indigenous philosophies, at the heart of understanding how our ancestors were able to preserve the land, grow healthy food, and have thriving economies, it's important to acknowledge that knowledge is place-based, and every single community will have their own tradition, their indigenous science and wisdom. And the book speaks of that. It brings these two indigenous communities and compares them in the sense of not finding a gap as we are used to in the Western world, not finding a gap, but more about commonalities, how we can bring these two indigenous communities and elevate their knowledge systems, indigenous science, agricultural calendars, when it comes to philosophies of life. And for me, the book celebrates that. The book celebrates all these many traditions that exist and probably we don't know about if we don't start talking and discussing and recognizing the value of indigenous knowledge, that it's place-based and we all have our stories. And we even had to look back into our own family history, indigenous background to understand those stories. And that's the essence of the book. It's a celebration of the lore, of the knowledge of many, many indigenous communities. And it's, for me, a pleasure to be here and have the support of you guys here. So thank you.
So I wonder if you also, like Lila, gave examples of how in North America, how there's evidence of ways in which the land and the sea was managed to create this beautiful bounty for everything on the planet. Do you have those same kinds of examples both in Peru and in New Zealand of true engagement sort of in what we would call agricultural way with the land?
Yeah, definitely. For instance, in Cusco, in the highlands of Peru, we have this very agricultural sacred space called Maras Morai, where it was a place where Andean scientists we're able to cross-pollinate, we're able to ensure that the seeds, we are able to resist harsh weather conditions. And what they didn't just capture the knowledge for themselves, but they ensured that the whole, back then, Andean or Inca Empire had the knowledge. It's not like what we see now with this patenting of seeds. Back then it was, no, we have to share the knowledge. We discovered this specific kind of seeds that's weather resistant, harsh weather resistant. We have to ensure that everyone will have access and will have the right to food security. It's not what we see now, that you find something and we know about biopiracy. So it was a different thinking. It was more the greater common good. It was more about solidarity and all those indigenous values. It's something that they embraced and something that we've lost when it comes to a Western approach of growing food or a Western approach or even governing a system, which is totally different. And when it comes to North America, I've been working closely with the Onondaga people, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, as we were discussing, they have been doing a lot of work in restoring their seeds, because when the colonizers arrived, they knew that to get rid of indigenous peoples in North America, to raise them, one of the main tools was food. And what did they do? They burned all the Haudenosaunee Confederacy seeds in 1776. They did that because they knew, okay, if you don't have your precious foods, you will die, and your culture will be raised. So now what they're doing, we in the book also discuss about the concept of repatriation. We know that repatriation comes from the father, patria, and just asking to have back something that was stolen from us. When we talk about repatriation within the seed sovereignty, indigenous food sovereignty, we talk about restoring our cultural well-being. We talk about bringing back those seeds that we have lost, all those relatives that we've lost because of colonization, because of globalization, because of capitalism, and bring them back to Mother Earth. And that's the movement that we are now working to, repatriating cultures of well-being, cultures that are driven by women that have the knowledge, the values, the nurturing, the nourishing, and also be supported by men, because we have in our cosmologies, the men and women play a role, the sun and the moon, this duality. And when it comes to examples in Aotearoa and New Zealand, they have a different perspective when it comes to food, and they focus more on the political aspect, the legal aspect, because they have something unique. They have the Treaty of Waitangi, which is a treaty between Maori and the British Crown. And the case is very unique because of that treaty enables Maori to have full sovereignty. That's on the Maori version. There are discrepancies with the English and Maori, but I know that Maori will never cede sovereignty. So the Treaty of Waitangi provides Maori with the rights to self-determination. And when it comes to food and food accessibility, they are very political savvy, and it's something I appreciate when it comes to developing policies, environmental policies, food policies. So the examples come from that area, the political side of it, the public policy, which I'm also very passionate about. Is why I understand and I know how they actually work towards enacting the rights to self-determination. And we have more practical examples in the highlands of Peru. But going back to your question, all these examples are no silos. Mm-hmm. All these examples are together, and now we're seeing more Maori coming to Peru, Peruvians going to Aotearoa, New Zealand, North America, having this panel. And even within the United States, we see more of the Diné, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We have more of the, especially on the West Coast, we have the Nunucha people in Vancouver. So I feel that all these examples are real, are happening, and we're building more and more solidarity.
I'm glad that you planted the seed about seeds, because I think that probably opens it up to everybody else on this stage who has something to say about the role of seeds, the importance of seeds, the history of seeds, and why this matters. And I'm open that up to anybody who'd like to add, but if you would like to, I know you?
Well, it's an honor to be here. On behalf of my dad and my grandpa, seeds were very important. He always considered himself more of a seed planter because seeds were very important. Saving them is okay, but to actually keep the genetics strong, you need to keep them going every year and keep them present in the times we're in. You said it's not like it used to be, and every year it changes. And a lot of the things we're facing these days, you know, the seeds can adapt and to what's going on with us and actually give us the medicine we need. And through that, exactly what you're saying about our culture tied to our foods, ties to our seeds, ties to everything that we're doing in our connection with Mother Earth. And also, like, I appreciate what you're saying about calendars too, because my grandpa used to say this tick, 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 tock. And March, April, May means absolutely no sense to him. It moves too fast, makes me sick, he said, until he threw it off. He said, we follow the sun and the moon and the seasons. And then there's certain times you gotta watch certain things, the way it's done. And it keeps us connected in where we are on this planet, so we know when to plant the seeds in harmony with everything. And it's like the plants, the animals, insects, the fishes, everything. They have a voice. They have a communication. And in this time, I heard it last night. We didn't lose it, but we're bringing it forward now again. We're bringing it back, and a lot of the work we do is with youth. And they're yearning for it. And there's almost like this genetic tie to it that they have an understanding. And it's a pretty enjoyable work. When I was growing up working with my dad and my grandpa, it was hard. It was difficult. It wasn't a cool thing to be doing, you know. And sometimes we use that word like production. We're talking about that, but we're using more words like abundance and health and wellness. And in the actual story of the seed comes like corn. It doesn't grow by itself. It needs a human to plant it, take care of it, like a little baby, grow it up, love it, feed it, nourish it, harvest it like that, and then redo it the next year. And so with that is like, I used to call it like a natural law. And it keeps us in the flow of everything that's going on, because then we know what to do, when to do, how to do it, because that plant is, we're watching it in the present moment. And so all the stories from the past to the present, and then it's growing us into the future. And so it's a beautiful process, you know. It's a beautiful thing to go through, and we call it the seed to table program, you know, and we go all the way through and all the way to the end until you have that harvest, and you share it back with your people. You know, you feed your people, and also there's like a mastery in preparing food. You know, that's not my thing, but I love to eat good food. You know, and we also make ovens, and in that oven, it's like a warm place. It's a place of you feel like you belong there. The good food comes out of there. My grandma used to like to come and talk around there because all of our mouths are full, and she can talk to us and tell us things, you know. So, you know, you can fill your ears with beautiful stories and things. And so I come to realize some of these things later on in life, like I didn't really know what I was being around, but now I see the importance of it. I see, you know, the past coming to the future, coming to the present, setting up the future. And in that is also, we have values. One of them we call unity. And in unity takes love, respect, takes accountability, takes showing up, takes communicating, takes a lot of courage, takes learning, wisdom, and these kinds of things. And I've been finding myself connecting with a lot of different people, different nations, and just today connected with Kenya, and I look forward someday going to Kenya, and through that, it's like at this time too, I believe that we have our ancestors with us. I don't think it's an accident that these things are happening. We're in a time of like prophecy coming true, and I heard I was remembering this story one time. Somebody asked my grandpa the purpose of life, and he was just like looking around like, oh, I don't like it. And he said, life has no purpose. The life is the plants, animals, and insects, the mountains, the valley, the fire, the water, the air. Everything around here is beautiful, it's great. We're just here to live with it and tend to it. Tender love and care and unity together. And pretty soon you're just gonna find yourself walking on the path, you know. Calls it the beautiful red road of happiness across the lands again. And the red carpet of happiness, he wants to lay it out. And you're just gonna be singing songs and reciprocity, going around leaving offerings and gratitude everywhere. And he told me that we have like these 3 commandments, and the number 1 is when you raise in the morning, be grateful. Creator, thank you. Right when you open your eyes up like that. Second one is help one another. It's working together. And the third one is enjoy it. Enjoy it. And that's what we want to do in ours and in our little community that we're working with, and is make it enjoyable, not like a production thing, work, go, slavery kind of, you know, like low on the totem pole. You know, it's actually very valuable. And I see it as one of the most important things we're doing today, is planting seeds, maintaining the earth, and reconnecting, and acknowledging Mother Earth as the mother of all creation, first and foremost.
So I was thinking about what you said at the beginning about how your father's focus and emphasis on the planting and the maintaining of the seed above and beyond the production. And there is a documentary film called Guardientes de Maíz, or Guardians of Corn, by a UCLA professor, looking at the corn growers of Michoacan. And it's an interesting thing. In the documentary, the farmers who've been farming this traditional corn for generations talk about how the first thing they do is they pick the best corn not to eat, but to save, and they eat the other, so that the seeds are forever improving. And they feel that their first and primary obligation is the guardian of that seed keeping. And I heard that sort of resonate in what you're saying as well. Now I know you want to talk about seeds, all 3 of you. So who would like to go first?
You're the elder.
There we go.
Ouch. Yeah, it sucks getting old, right?
Beats the alternative.
American narcissism. Sorry. My clan is Red Chief clan. My sister here is Kachini, which we're kind of in relationship in that way. Kachini are warrior clans where it's a good day to die, you know. They go into battle and they have the bow up there and the arrow, and they split out, and the community does their funeral before they go to war because they're not coming back. That's the kind of spirit we need today in America. We become passive.
I see docile, hands in the back.
Docile, you know, we become very much a part of the whole colonial system, especially Indigenous people. And so, but I know I have to talk about seeds. I'm trying to get to the topic. So.
Segue.
Yeah.
I heard that's a Danae thing.
Yeah. Ouch. Sitting between two.
A lot of inside jokes going on up here.
Ladies, right? Oh, you know, what did you say? Never give a Navajo guy a microphone. Ouch.
Some others get it too.
Yeah, that hurts my heart. You know, just kidding. So it's inside joke.
Not so inside
Hear
joke.
about the Indian guy that says, I hate Indian givers? I take that back. The seed, let's talk a little bit about the seed. I can go in any direction. But before I do that, I'll talk about station wagons.
Okay.
Tuba City and Kayenta We went in there working with a little girl that had gotten seedlings from the school. A lot of crazy stuff that the schools are doing. Well, we got to get the young people to farm, you know. So they gave her seed. And we happened to be in town sharing compost from our farm. And we had brought it in. And she came to the workshop. There was a lot of people that were interested in, you know, typical natives. Beans, corn, you know, squash. They're really into that. You know, it's like, no. Our ancestors grew a lot. They did a lot of gathering. They were into the perennials. And that was more nutrient-dense seeds. They're wild, and they're not domesticated. There's 3 types of Indians. One is a government Indian, one's a poor Indian, and one is a wild Indian. Who is it? One of Vernon Deloria's concept of Indian country. And which one are you? You know, it's like, which one are you, James? So we go to this Tuba city, and we drive in there. It's a ghetto. Cars everywhere, domestic violence, you know, people getting in fights. And we drive up, and we have this workshop. This little girl, how old was he? About 7, 8 years old. What was her name? Z was her name. So she's in the middle of all these elders and wanting to talk about corn seeds and this she brought the tray. So we gave her some compost and we helped her build some raised beds so that, you know, she don't have to, you know, contain it. And it's very compacted soil, sand, heat, everything else. So the next trip around, we came back to that same place. And Z had put these seedlings in the raised beds, and it was like an oasis, a garden. We drove in there, it's like, it's green. Wow, you know? And then she convinced the next door neighbor, using old car parts and different junk that was around, you know, the trailer ghetto, and created these raised beds and influenced her neighbor. Mm-hmm. Every time we see her, she'd go, now what? She said, you know, I planted this. She's sitting in our garden, and she goes, now what? Now what? Another couple months passed, and we hauled some more compost there, and Z had met us, and, you know, this beautiful garden in the back. She's sitting there, and she's got all this squash and corn grown, and, you know, and she's at harvest time. Sits on the edge of her raised bed, and he says, now what? Now what? It was another tribe, now what? Yeah. Sorry. Now what? It's, nobody's getting it. I'm losing it. Yeah. So they had convinced the neighbor of this old station wagon, and they turned it into a greenhouse.
Yeah.
Golly, it's like, that's talk about creative, you know. So my grandpa, his name was Money. Every time he'd show up at the trading post down the road from us, the Mormon missionary would look out and he says, what do you want? He was like 5 years old, and he'd say, money. That's how he got his name, Money Skeet. My name Skeet comes from the word hunter, you know, Askeen. It's an old Navajo word. My grandfather took this concentration of our people, our Navajo people, to Fort Sumner and basically starved them. Kit Carson had come in and just slash and burn. And we have never fully recovered from that. I mean, they ate the moccasins. Women got syphilis from sleeping with the soldiers to get a handful of corn, maize for Africans, you know. So there's a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder coming from even just the gardening. I would have to say out of all the tribes, the Dene were the most Americans in their pastoral and herding. The Churro sheep came from the Spaniards, which was trash sheep. They brought it because they could survive. They had a lot of intelligence, wildness in them. Brought them over along with, guess what? The Mustang, which could eat just about anything. Mm-hmm. we're Mongolian descent. There's a little tattoo when we're born. I don't know if Delilah had it, but they migrated from the steppes of the Mongolian steppes. That horse was there, and that sheep was there. So when they came down, all of a sudden, not too far from where we live, 7 horses bolted from the conquistadors in the dead of winter. The Navajos picked them up. I think Apaches ate them. But the Navajos picked them up, and they quickly incorporated them into this oral tradition of saying, hey, listen, this is the dog, which means the carrier. Hle means the burden carrier. And the dog, that was the name of the dog, because that's what they did back then. You know, the dog was the burden carrier. The dog, the woof woof, became the poop of the horse. Hlechai. It's lost its position, you know. Now you see a lot of dead dogs on the road if you ever go to Navajo Nation because it's lost its position. But this dog, the horse, and the sheep became, from the 1600s into the 1800s, the Navajos became so powerful as a nation because they were eating omega-3s through the churro sheep. The intelligence is so heavy on them that they'll medicate themselves and they don't overgraze. They're constantly, you have to be a good hiker in order to herd the sheep. But this is a very interesting thing that's not written about or talked about is the nutrients in our foods are important. I'm getting to the seeds, wait, okay? The nutrients in our foods are very important to critical thinking. So we're looking for folks that are willing to take a deep dive into that, is studying the nutrient values within cultures to have them think outside the box again. Some of the problems we're having is because we're getting dumbed down food. The tomatoes you have is just volume and water. The seeds that we have, if you put any kind of synthetic fertilizers in there, it gets dumbed down. The sheep that we have are domesticated sheep, which doesn't have the high levels of omega-3. So that's what we're researching and trying to understand. So back to money. Money plowed the heck, I better not cuss, plowed the heck out of our property that we're around. I cannot remember when we didn't live there. You know, generations after generations, even predating Carson, Kit Carson, which was a mountain that rounded, was a friend of the Navajos, but rounded them up, betrayed them, and sent them on this trail of Hoye, they call it Hoye, which is a place of suffering. But in that whole process of money, in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, he plowed the soil, took out the topsoil, broke up the microbiome in the soil. And for about 4 or 5 years, he produced some really good corn and beans. But after that, desertified the land. I coined the term indigenous regenerative intelligence. Indigenous means using local materials. Regeneration or regenerative means going from zero up, regenerating the land. And intelligence is, we even think that the stones are sacred, which I think from a philosophical standpoint, we've been marginalized. Animism, you know, scientists have come in, you know, sort of the deduction, reduction, you know. So what we're really promoting is indigenous fractals, which is entropy and syntropy, the two terms of life and death, you know, comparing the two. And this is some stuff that, I'm glad you put that up. Do you have that one
It's
about?
magic.
Yeah, about that pendulum swinging. That's a dream I got regarding conventional farming and then the pendulum swinging back to organic farming. Some of you have probably seen Res Dogs. Recommend it, right? So the pendulum has been swinging. So we, instead of, like Gabe Brown has talked about principles, that sounds very Hellenistic and very linear and very dual Platonic thought. So we decided to take sacred things that has life, holding soil sacred, reconnecting with the microbes and that kincentric view of the earth, honoring the microbes. We have not done that in this country. In fact, we have not handed over the spiritual stewardship to the settler community. That's the reason for the chaos and the consumption and the print that's on these lands and the need for keystone cultures to help educate and learn really how to work within natural systems. We have reduced it down, and I have a picture of a wolf and a sheep. The wolf has a round pupil. It's extractive, it's looking for predatory culture, whereas the sheep has a horizontal pupil going from side to side. So all these indigenous people are really checking out things right away. You know, what's she wearing? What's that at? You know, try to get a Belagana or a white person to do that. What's on the agenda? You know. So I think these worldviews we have to look at in terms of the changes of indigeneity from conventional. We have to look at the epistemology. What lenses are we looking for? In through.
And through, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just love Z. Z showed me what humility means. Z showed me that if a little girl like that can do it, don't give up. Because this path farming is not easy, folks. I don't recommend it. I got interviewed in a podcast. Says, do you recommend farming? I said, no, don't. Stay away from it. It's too much hard work. And you guys know, some of you are farmers, you have your hand in the soil. It's not, we got to stop looking and romanticizing and really just look at the reality. And the government needs to stop the subsidies of huge farms.
But both of you said something actually on the point. You both got your hands.
She's right. No, can't take the
told you,
microwave
don't give him
away.
the
That's not the hook. No, but both of you said something. You both said, and you both are farming, and we all know and acknowledge that it is very hard work. But you also both acknowledged last night that there was also some peace and some self-help, and as hard as the work may be, you also got something out of it. True?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's identity. Let me just be honest, folks. Zuni, some of the Pueblo communities, the Navajo communities in the Southwest, they're doing hey. Unless these cultures have their hands in the soil, it's all theatrical. And if you hear me right, it's not a put down. We have to get back to the soil and that cosmology. Because our religions are so complex in the Southwest, is really to work with nature and the environment and the water cycles, the seasonal things. We've lost that. Now it's just a powwow. Everybody's just being theatrical. Unless we're doing the herding, the farming, we have our hands in the soil, it's real. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Now you two, either of you, both of you want to follow?
I feel like we ought to hear from our local sister.
Okay.
I feel like
I was going to get to her because I want her to talk about sort of the next step is sort of the cookbook and the food and the tradition. But yes, Mirna, you want to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing in the Kumeyaay community and other work in the Valle de Guadalupe. Tell us. Thank you.
No, you're fine.
First of all, thank you all. I feel very happy and I want to cry to be here. I'm born and raised in Baja California, and I'm here in the representation of Doctora Carolina Gutierrez. She's one of my best friends, and she is the creator of the book. And also in the representation of Carmen Dominguez. She's from Necua. She born and raised in San Antonio, Necua. She's a Kumiai, and she's one of my best friends also. And yes, well, this starts, I think, when I was 22 years old. For me, it's a long time ago. When I see a picture of my grandmother, and I ask my mom, Mom, she's my grandmother? And she said, yes. And she was a fisherwoman, and she was a diver also. And we didn't have idea. So I was studying communication in the university, and I started my journey looking for my roots. And I discovered that my grandfathers and my uncles was fishermen also. So my roots are very near from the sea and the Pacific Ocean. And that's why I started working in conservation. Now I'm working in Terra Peninsularis, a nonprofit that protects areas in Baja California. I work with education and with communities of fishermen. But I'm not here for talk about Terra Peninsula. I'm here because after all this journey in conservation and fighting for conserve these coastal landscapes, I meet Carmen in San Quintin, in San Antonio, Necua, and we was in a workshop about native plants, and I was sick, and she helped me a lot with that tea of Salvia apiana. And now we are working together in this history or this documentary about her journey, teaching her child. She had two little sons in the ancestral ways. So for me, it's very important our relationship, because this documentary is not about to show my ego or something more. It's from the heart. And I think I'm here to talk about the importance of keep this in memory and do a lot of things like the educational materials, like your game. And we need to start doing this also. So about Carolina, in this journey, looking for my roots, we talk about doing something with my mom, because she do a lot of seafood recipes. She made this fish, how can I say, like pescado empapelado, like
Oh yeah,
fishing
like
paper. Great.
parchment, yeah.
So Carolina asked if my mom could make some of the recipes for her, and that's why we start doing this photographic journey. So now, for me, it's an honor to, two of my best friends are working on this, keeping the memory of our culture in Baja California, and also for me is very, very special because we don't have a lot of things in Spanish. So there's a lot of materials and books in English, but we don't have anything in Spanish. So for us, it's a very, very new journey doing this, and I think that's my work. It's just to be a bridge and to help Carmen to record all this experience and help her to keep this for their sons. It's something that looks so small, but it's so big for her and for me. And I think we need to start looking for these tiny little stories in the corners of the trails, very near from the oaks. And I don't know, that's why.
You're preserving and documenting.
Sorry, I'm nervous.
No, it's okay. It's all friendly. But you know, you're preserving, you're collecting, you're documenting, you're preserving stories, history, from recipes to traditional practices, storytelling, everything. And as you said, there isn't enough of a collection of that work in those communities. So I think the projects that you're working on are essential, and I think it's very important work. And
thank you.
Yeah.
We do a lot of nature journal with the kids, so they are starting, how can I say, like aprender, like learning. Learning the Kumiai language.
Yeah.
Through these activities with Carmen. So for us, it's very special to do this, and we really want to start doing this with the kids in the community and try to show this documentary when we finish to more people, people that want to keep their stories and their family memories.
Well,
for the
and
future.
we had the conversation last night that the maintaining and teaching the language is also essential. That I think Dr. Rodriguez said last night that the numbers are very low, and so all efforts on both sides of the border to, share and spread the language among younger people is essential. And you also are working with in that book is an instructing in native plants and the uses of both culinary, medicinally, everything, right?
Exactly. And you can check the book if you scan the QR code in the poster. And also you can meet Carmen and Carmen's sons, Danny and Jose, in the pictures. So hopefully we can finish this material and share with you next year. But yeah, I really want to say thank you because there's more and more organizations helping and giving resources to Baja California, and we really need it. We really need it because we don't have anything in Spanish. It's just a little bit of things, and we need more people involved in Baja conservation because I think we share a lot. We share not just the territory, but we share the love for the land and flora, fauna, and it's the same trail, right?
And in the spirit of the sort of multi-group, cross-cultural cooperation and connection that you were talking about, actually Mirna is leading the entire panel on a visit of the Kumeyaay communities in the Valle de Guadalupe tomorrow. So everyone here who may not have had the chance to visit those communities will have an opportunity to do so and see the work that you're talking about and that's happening there generally. And that's from everyone, what everyone has had to say today is fundamental and essential, this kind of connection and cooperation in and among groups. Thank you for that, Mirna.
Thank you.
Anyone, ladies, over here on this side? You haven't said anything yet, Lacey.
Nya, Lacey Cannon Nishi, Mamuchach Wepuk Shamap Mat Sampisqual, Winimohe, Napuma Shamap Kumiai. My name is Lacey Cannon. I said to you today in Kumiai that my sons are from the Waipuk clan of San Pasqual and that it makes my heart happy, and now I dream in Kumiai. I'm grateful today to go last because my teacher always taught me we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I'm also very grateful to hear the very long Dene stories as we joke about that. And I want to tell you why. The elder stories are very important, and in the Western world, we've lost a patience to listen to them. But the stories are multi-layered, and the humor is there because it makes us remember things. My teacher taught me, the word in Kumiai for earth is mat, but it's the same word for self. And he would say, we forget that we are made of earth until we turn back into it. And I hear people speak today of seeds, but I think when we look at land relationship and the whole story of it, we look at what the plant has to offer from the roots to those seeds. And we're similar as human beings. And I think that our children are those seeds. The children are the most important thing, and we cannot continue on without having the seeds and having the children. And so I'm grateful to be here and sharing about land relationship with all of these people. Land relationship, we can read about being in love in life, but if you haven't been in love, you haven't experienced it. And it's the same with land relationship. We can read books about plants, we can read books about history, but if you aren't living in the cycles with whatever the land is that you are living on, you aren't experiencing that relationship. And the relationship with the plants, do you ever leave talking to someone and you feel so good because their vibe was so good and they just made you feel so good and their energy is so good? Well, the plants are relatives that are like that all the time. And their vibration is something that exists long before our Western culture is here. So the fastest, I hate to use the word fastest, a potent way is to experience and to slow that down and to be a part of it. So getting into that relationship and understanding, what is the moon today? Have you even looked at the sky? Have you had a fire to look at the sky today? And what's in season, you know, what's growing around us. And so that's taking outside of the book and putting it into relationship. And the vibe of the plants that exists, it can realign us in a way that strips away our Western training and really decolonizes us.
I want you for a minute to talk about your mentor and what you learned from him and carry with you, and also maybe talk for a minute about the board game, which makes that information accessible to so many.
Yeah. Well, my teacher is Lahant Richard Bugby. He was my best friend and teacher for 7 years. He lived with me on the land at Paradise Tribal Farm for the last 3 of his life. And we made this board game. It took us 5 years to make this board game. And the board game, it's more than just a game, you know. He trained for 35 years under Jane Dumas, who was the last living Kumeyaay, or plant medicine family in the Kumiai community. And he went on beyond her death to also continue to teach and train and work with the plants and teach the kids. His knowledge was vast. And so, you know, we were just friends, and I have a 9-year-old son now, but at the time he was 4 or 5, and we had a game called Wildcraft, and said, hey, we should make a Kumeyaay version of this. And we ended up living together for years, so we had the time to do it post-COVID, and both of us post-divorce, and just really enjoyed each other's company and hung out with Levi and talked about plants. And it started as documenting stories and then turned into spreadsheets and organizing that knowledge, and then eventually turned into the game that you see over there. But it explores Kumeyaay territory of Baja and San Diego with no colonized borders. It shows our bioregions of coast, valley, mountain, and desert, and then big game food, small game food, trading items, numbers, colors, solstices, equinoxes, what to gather during what moon cycle. It's all there. And when we look at land relationship, it encompasses a lot, you know, beyond just the plants and the animals and the stars. It encompasses the spirituality and the culture and the history and everything that has existed there that still does. So it is not lost knowledge in San Diego. It's very there. So, and this allows it to be in the hands of all of our seeds or our kids.
And you actually had some recent successes having this taught in school or utilized in schools, yes?
We are beginning to implement, so we were invited to implement in with the Valley Center Library and the Valley Center Unified School District into a program that they've started called ABC Seeds, and it takes art, botany, and culture into the classroom for the kids to be able to learn. And it's really, it's a diabetes-focused program, but a health program, so, you know, ultimately. And yeah, the board game is being implemented into San Diego schools, but first we're just trying to get it into the hands of all of our Kumeyaay kids.
Yeah. No, but it's very important, and it was. I remember, you know, I've known you through at least some of the process, and hearing you talk about it, and meeting Bug and you, and watching it in, you know, in progress, and now seeing the final product, and knowing that something like that can completely educate an entire new generation of people to everything we're talking about here today. And that's pretty amazing work. You should be very happy, and I know Bug is too. So I think good kudos to you. Now, Lila, you have anything to say on top of that? I know you've been waiting.
Oh, no, I wasn't expecting to speak, but I think a lot of what we're saying, you know, we were talking last night of so what now? What's the action steps we take? And I think each of the people on this panel and all of you would have wonderful answers to that question. But one thing I think is that continuing to support and be in solidarity with Indigenous communities, just as you're doing right now. It seems to me as an Indigenous woman that in our own homeland, we're so invisible. And it's annoying. You know? I get in a cab and the guy's like, oh, you're Indian? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, you don't pay taxes. I'm like, oh, do you get a casino check? You know, and it's just like, I never got a casino check in my life. So this is like, or if you type into Google, do Navajos, you know how it populates automatic search, what people are searching for. Do Navajos have facial hair? Do Navajos pay taxes. Like that's the level of ignorance we're battling in our own homeland. And I'm not bitter about it. I know it was systematic, right? To systematically miseducate the entire nation about who we were, to the point where we don't even remember we're miseducating anymore. And so I think because each of you here have your own communities, I think it's so beautiful we have people from so many cultures here today. It's so precious, it's auspicious, like his hat, if you see, there's a black, yellow, red, and white. Can you face towards them just a little bit? That's an old symbol used by many different nations, but one is the Lakota Nation, and before they saw all these different races of humanity coming, they already saw them coming. Mm-hmm. And so it's auspicious when we're all together in one medicine circle. And so each of you has different resources or networks or skills or communities that you belong to. And so I think if we could bring this knowledge out to them through you, it would be really helpful. I think Michelle is a case in point, where has a lot of connections, a lot of worlds that she lives in, and she's working to bring this out, because it shouldn't be that the least known about culture in America is Indigenous peoples. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense to me. This is our home, and we need to be leading, not so that we can have power, but so that we can help people live in a good way. Because we are the scientists of this land. That's why I wanted to hear from you to speak as Kumiai woman, because wherever I go, my elder told me, always follow the people of that land, because they are the expert scientists, tens of thousands of years of that land. We just found 23,000-year-old footprints in New Mexico, human footprints. They found 25,000-year-old cave paintings in South America. Yes. So we were here before the Bering Strait. Indigenous peoples were here long. That theory has been disproven for a long time now. That yes, there was people who came that way, and people went. It was a two-way street. But there's also nations that were already here. And so by going wherever you go, to always follow those native nations and to ask yourself, how can I be of service to this native nation? How can I lift up the voices of the people here? Because sometimes we need alliances. Sometimes we need people to help us in this battle. And it's not a battle against anyone. It's a battle to help us replace our fear with love, and help us in this battle to remind people that everything's okay. Everything's okay. You don't have to go out and take everything. You're gonna be all right. Like, you don't have to take for yourself. You can serve others and still be safe and cared for and have everything you need. So this sort of outward flowing philosophy that we can give, instead of this vacuum thing where it's just sucking up everything for yourself, the fame and the money that we teach our children to have. So that's why we need your help, not to be, in charge or to have power, but to remind people what our ancestors taught us, and frankly, what every single person in here's ancestors knew as well. When I introduce my clan, there's Bilagana, which is a white people clan. My father's father was Scottish, and so I've done a lot of research into that Indigenous European identity, and how everything that was happening to Indigenous peoples here was first practiced on the Indigenous peoples of Europe. And it wasn't even called Europe back then. That's a whole other story. It's a very sad word, Europe, if you trace the etymology. But in any case, that all of our ancestors, I've been to those 17,000-year-old cave paintings in France, where they're painting bison, ibex, horses, pregnant women, 17,000 years ago. And that's who we all are collectively, as a people who lives in relationship with these things. And so that's why we need your help to form these alliances, to whatever. Maybe you work at the university, maybe you work at in the TV industry, maybe you are an author, maybe you're a medicine person with the herbs and stuff, but whatever little way, whatever extra time you might have, lend a hand. Maybe you're a lawyer. We need help from lawyers. Maybe, you know, whatever, maybe you have
It's rare someone says that.
maybe you have a little few hours to spare, you know, to be in solidarity with us, because it's hard to fight this one alone.
There's so much that you said that I can't even begin to follow. However, what I got, the beginning part, I feel like we're talking about leading with love instead of fear. And right now we're feeling a lot of fear and uncertainty, and that never leads to good decision-making or engagement of any kind. And we have to get back from that fear and understand abundance, that by giving more, we get more. And everybody, as you said, everything will be fine. And one of the things that came up in our dialogue of working together in the same groups, larger groups, within tribal groups, around Indigenous people around the planet, were all of these international organizations. There are conferences on conservation, on land use, on agriculture. And what often happens at every level, local, regional, state, national, international, is that Indigenous voices from the very place we're talking about are either not included at all, or if they are included, are, quite frankly, not in a position where people are really listening to what they have to say. And I think it's essential that we have that. And as to the final point, somebody said to me earlier this week, you know, we're all Indigenous from somewhere. And I think that's an important thing to remember. The problems really began when people moved to other places where they didn't grow symbiotically in that environment with the land and the animals and the sea and all of it. And when they went to another place to, quote, conquer, this is when things change. But before that, everybody does have their own tradition and knowledge and culture somewhere in your lineage. We all have it. And so tapping back into that place and listening to the people in the places we are meaningfully will change things dramatically, I think. Anyone else?
Well, I just can say that building solidarity is an important step moving forward in building a deeper understanding of the valuable knowledge of Indigenous peoples, but it needs to also go, it needs to go in hand with respect and recognition of Indigenous science, Indigenous rights to self-determination, to sovereignty. Only until we actually know that Indigenous science has the same equal footing as Western science, that's a key moment. It's important to build solidarity, and it's something that we're here just to build knowledge across many networks, but also it's important to be a good ally. And to be a good ally is also important to be humble, not expect that Indigenous people will always be the ones teaching you, but also be humble about the knowledge that you have. And as I said before, respecting and recognizing Indigenous knowledge. To me, that's very important, especially when we know and the COVID-19 provided a key opportunity to reposition the value of Indigenous peoples. And we are talking about food, it provided an opportunity to center the role of Indigenous knowledge, science, processes, methods, because we knew that the system was failing us. I'm sure many of you went to a supermarket and could not find food. It was just very chaotic. And it's an example that the system failed us. And it provided an opportunity to understand and recognize the value of Indigenous communities, Indigenous knowledge. So now that it's been more than 2-3 years post-COVID, now we're seeing this new wave of, we want to work with you, we want to learn from you. Many Indigenous scholars, grassroots organizations, activists, we need you now because we know that the system is not working. Mm-hmm. So now we're at that stage that many elders paved the way to support the work of young scholars, activists, all of us working in this space and having good allies. While we have this opportunity, also we are more assertive when it comes to being part of those international reports. I'm part of various United Nations food security reports, part of UNESCO knowledge about Indigenous science, biodiversity. And usually, often at times, it's just me. Mm. And it's just writing main key chapters. So now we're seeing, while we know that we appreciate that Indigenous knowledge has been recognized, we also want to be more assertive to the extent of how we share our knowledge and how our knowledge has been recognized and our capabilities. And that's why, and I speaking of my experience, I continue in academia. And I have to say, the US academia is one of the toughest. And I persevere and I continue teaching Indigenous research methodologies, food systems, because to me, it's my responsibility to continue share the knowledge and educate the next generation, because I just don't want me and my voice and hoping to support the communities I work with to be on the table of those policy-making discussions, but I want the next generation, my students, my mentees, all those youth that are coming to also be part of those important meetings. In Aotearoa, New Zealand, one of the elders said to us, we're just sick and tired of not being invited to a table. Well, it's time for us to make our own table. And it's something that we've been doing, just making me part of these conversations. We have, I don't know if you follow the news when it comes to big climate change conferences. And then we have, well, it's a big gathering when it comes to Indigenous understanding of climate change. So we have to make a stay when we go to the United Nations Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues. It's a beautiful moment because all of us come together, and yes, it's a space where we hear our grievances, but we build solidarity and we continue to pressure and push governments to acknowledge that we have rights. It's not just human rights, but we also very advocate for the rights of Mother Nature, the rights of the forest, the rivers to be protected. So to me, to move forward, it's just working with and for the benefit of Indigenous peoples and humanity overall.
And the planet.
Yeah.
Well, I think the slide was up earlier that showed, and the number is that Indigenous people in the US are 5% of the population, manage 12% of the land, but yet oversee 80% of its biodiversity. So even if those first two numbers are off by 1% or 2%, I think that 80% number speaks volumes about the fact that, you know, there is much to be gained by the knowledge that we're talking about. Everyone benefits. All of humanity benefits, all of the animals benefit, and obviously the planet benefits. And I think that might be a good lead into one topic we didn't quite get to, which is land back. So I know you wanted to talk about that, and others may as well. But it's one of the concepts is, you know, if we're not going to listen and change the way current agriculture, conservation, land management is being managed, then maybe more land needs to be in the hands of people who tend to care best for it.
I know you have something to share.
Okay, I'll just be quick
can go
because I'm talking too much. But
No, it's good.
Land back is a movement that's going on now to return lands to Indigenous peoples. Of course, we don't have concepts of land ownership necessarily, so you're not really giving it back to a person, but back to a paradigm, back to a way of caring for it. It takes the form of churches giving back, you know, hundreds and hundreds of acres to Native nations. That's happened a few times over the past few years. It comes in the form of private landowners, you know, deeding it to an Indigenous, sometimes a woman, rematriation, giving the land back to the grassroots Native women. Don't give it to the tribal council, right? They're kind of created by the US Congress government. They're usually often, not always, but often corrupted. So usually give it to the grassroots women or grassroots men and to take care of it in the old way, not in the businessy way. It also takes the form of co-management. Joshua Tree National Park is the very first national park that's now co-managed by the 29 Palms band of Mission Indians, as it were. But they are now overseeing Joshua Tree Park in the old way alongside with the national park system. And any other creative, sadly, probably the most common one is Native people are buying their own land back. We're literally buying our own land back that was, you know, documented to have been stolen. But we're usually buying it back with wealth that is given, colonial wealth that is rematriated. So it is kind of land back in an indirect way of like that. They just bought a $2.3 million parcel in Grass Valley, California, the Nisenan Nation. So it's happening all over where these land bases are going back to the people to do pilot projects and to show the world what we got, show proof of concept that we can do this and we can do it well. And so, yeah, I think that's it.
Anyone else on this? Yeah, please.
My teacher would bring up really great points about land back in regards to our state parks, and that's a very practical way that our states could be actually doing land back, and looking at the very least, having our tribes who are close by those state parks partaking in and you'll hear the word management used a lot, but I was always taught to replace this word with relationship and to replace resources with relatives. So in land relationship, the state parks could really, honestly, give that land back.
Or like you said, there's a co-management in some instances, sort of
Yeah.
let it be guided by whatever. I mean, we're facing a different dynamic in the short-term future ahead where some of the state park lands may be subjected to drilling and things like that. And I think this would be a good counterbalance to that and push back the other direction. Better stewardship and preservation and maintenance. Look, we're down to the last 10 minutes, so I want to let everybody give a chance for any final comments you might have. How about we'll start over you, Adam?
I was thinking about the land back, land reunion, and what our vision is for that reunion. And it's a place where we can manage, connect from like bringing in our opportunity to have our children in the garden. I work a lot with traditional midwives, and we grow a lot of their herbs and foods and things like that. Like that, they use the corn to have good milk and things like that, and they want to be able to have their children born in the garden right there, where they can go outside and there's their food, there's their medicine, there's all the things they need. And then to be able to teach the mothers just hands-on, see where it's grown and know it like that, understand themselves like that. But then to be able to have the children grow up and learn how to live on earth in a good, harmonious way. And it's, a school, it's a life way, it's a long, good life. It's it could be a pilot project, but I don't think it is. I think it's already been proven since time immemorial. And we're in the time right now to where it can happen. And like Lila was saying, what we can do. My grandma used to say, we're going into some really difficult times we're in right now. It's been really difficult. The only way we can get through it is we learn to share. And there's plenty around for everybody, and love and respect is at the root of all of it. And through that, that whole commerce thing is just raped and pillaged this whole land in the name of greed, just taking everything. And I think through the good heart, through the good mind, through the goodness, take that money and compost it, clean it up, put it back into our Mother Earth and grow something beautiful. That's what I see for the future.
Thank you. Well, I have a lot of inspiration. When I arrived here, I was asking myself, like, what I'm doing here. I was very, very insecure. And now I say that I don't want to talk about my work in Terra Peninsular, but in San Quintin Bay, San Quintin Bay is a Kiliwa land, and there's no people from the Kiliwa territory there. So now we are fighting for the land, and it's so hard. We are having a lot of insecurity there and a lot of problems because people don't know about the land. They don't have idea what kind of plants live there, and they don't have idea what kind of animals live there. They just want to build a lot of hotels and with the wetlands around and the volcanoes around, and they want to destroy all of this. So we are working on this. But now I know that I'm here for a reason, because I have a lot of inspiration from you. I know that we are a family, and you are part of my family, and Baja California and South California, and we are one family. So I know that I can ask for help, and now I have a lot of inspiration from you. Sorry, and not just for my work with Carmen and Doctora Carolina. Instead of this, in my work in conservation as an education non-formal teacher, but now I know that we need to go with the Kiliwa people that are far from the reserves, but they live there. So we need to ask and talk with them.
Yeah.
Because they need to know that this is happening
And be a part.
and be part of this.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate what my sister Layla and my brothers have been saying about, and I'm glad that we're finishing with land back movement, which resonates with repatriating cultures of well-being or repatriating philosophies of well-being, because at the core of those philosophies and those traditions are this kinship-centric philosophy. And those kinship teaches us about values about love, solidarity, caring, reciprocity. And I feel that those values, especially we deploy them when it comes to not just our relationship with the land, but the relationship with one another. It's just the land and humanity. We can definitely understand the voices and the stories of the ancestors, what they actually meant by leading a good life. The good life is not just having a very individualistic thinking and about thriving as an individual, but thriving as a collective. It's just about the well-being of the greater common good. It's the well-being of the broader community, the human and non-human community, the spiritual essence of that. And I feel that all these kinship relationships where ethics, values, belief systems are entrenched, it's something that we need to bring at the forefront of our discussions, whether it's about food and whether it's about land, but also how we relate to one another at the human level and also with the non-human level. And I just want to say that I, as a guest of the Kumeyaay ancestral land, I'm very grateful to be here. And in both cultures, my culture and Maori culture, we have this understanding that when we come to a space, it's not just me coming, but all my ancestors meeting all of your ancestors. And I feel that I am here with my ancestors, helping me in sustaining me, but I'm also meeting all of your ancestors. And I think that's important and keeps me grounded and provides me with the strength to continue with the work, and having this space enables that to say, I can do it, we can do it, and we can continue doing the work. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, if you can't do land back, please send us some station wagons.
Bringing it back.
I think I've maximized my counts. But thank you everybody for your hearts. Crazy Horse used to go into battle, and he would say, find the right heart that will go with you. And then he had a bumper sticker in the back that says, follow me.
And I would just like to say, trust Indigenous brilliance, invest in Indigenous brilliance. And don't make us jump through Western hoops to be able to do the work. Our work looks like storytelling and talking. And grant reporting is, I have to do it every day for the organization, but it's not something we love. We could be spending our time with the kids and with the elders and doing the work. So Indigenous brilliance is something that exists every single day in all of our communities. And so ask and don't tell, and you'll learn a lot.
Anything? Yeah, I just want to thank all of you here, and thank all of you for holding space for this. And there's a million more things I could say, but I suppose the best thing I could say is what my elders tell me, because they're usually the smartest ones, and I'm usually just plagiarizing whatever they told me. So, but they said it doesn't matter where you are. What matters is why you are there. And if you're always there to contribute with whatever way you can, you're always going to be in the right place. And that contribution can be large or it can be small. I put those in quotes because we live in an infinite universe. So really all we have is small things. And those small things are meaningful. Whether it's, being kind to the cashier at the grocery store, or laughing at his jokes to make him feel, or whatever it is, or if it's large, like doing a groundbreaking, award-winning, Oscar-winning film on Indigenous brilliance, that's good too, But my elder said in the morning say, Creator, may I help at least one person today. And that's a good prayer because it's a humble prayer. It's saying, even if I get to help one person, I'll be happy. But you say, at least, because you never know. It might be a lot of people. People maybe not yet born yet. So I would just say that that love is really what it all boils down to, is just one word, is love, and being kind and loving to each other. I think with that, we can't go wrong.
Well, as is often the case, I failed to introduce myself, and that's because I am the least significant person on stage each and every time I host a discussion like this. My name is Michelle Ciccarelli Lerach. I'm the founder of Very Good Food. I'm also a member of the board of press of UC Press, the publishing house for the UC system, which is the publisher of Maria Elena's book. And I was an executive producer of Kiss the Ground, which is the one of the documentary films that tells a little bit about regenerative agriculture. A fundamental step, I think, in getting us all to appreciate and learn and understand some of these concepts and principles that were foreign to many of us. I guess finally I would say, and there's nothing I can add to the brilliance of the people around me, but perhaps we could have more cooperation between Indigenous practices, knowledge. It is science. It's based on thousands of years of observation and engagement and practice, and working with our scientific communities, not necessarily requiring the same amount of scientific evidence and proof before accepting them, but figuring out a way that our brilliant institutions could in fact work with this knowledge to improve the quality of life for everyone. And perhaps we could focus there instead of looking for another planet to populate. We could spend that energy, time, and money right here on this one and learn from the people who've been here doing it right for a lot longer. And then we would have a much better place to be. And I thank you all for being here. Now we're going to have a question and answer. I'm pretty sure we have a microphone that can go around.
It's not really a question, it's a request, but it's a perfect segue from what you were just talking about.
Planets? No.
Adam, I had the fortune to be able to spend some time with Adam this week, and he told me an awesome story about sturgeons.
Yeah.
Can you share that one, please?
Well, I was in Alabama with the Muscogee Creek and got to witness the return of their sturgeon, and they're raising sturgeon, and they defied science, actually. I guess it takes about 5 years to raise a decent-sized sturgeon, and one of the universities in Florida decided to kind of give it up, and they decided to take their fish and start raising them, and they don't speak English to their sturgeon. They sing in their traditional songs, and they give them a good place, and they actually raise them in pools too. And he showed us a 1 year size sturgeon, and he wouldn't allow you to speak English to it. You could speak your indigenous language to it or sing him a native song, but no English, or it's like gonna confuse him. And so it was like this long, and he talked to him before he pulled him out of the water, and he had him out of the water for like 25 minutes, completely calm, not just in there breathing and everything. And it was 1 year old, and they attribute it to relationship, to that reciprocity of love and respect. Like what Lila was saying, it's powerful, and it shows with everything we do, starting from the earth, going down all the way up.
Thank you.
Love that story. And can you just remind me how long it took? The university was trying to do this for how many years?
5 to even longer years. And it just got too long, it was too expensive for them.
And they did it in like less than a year.
1 year.
Amazing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Parit Nomek from Kenya, from a tribe called Maasai. And I just want to ask my sister there. He was talking about clans. And I just want to ask you, how many clans do you have in Kumiai community? That's my first question.
So I'm Dene, which is different than Kumiai, but we're from what's now called New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Utah. We call it Denebakea. But we used to have many more clans, I believe over 100. I think now the number has gone down to, I want to say 40 or 50, what would you say? 40 or 50 active clans.
They're making up clans now because they're inbreeding.
And because I came from a tribe that have clans, do you marry within your clan?
No,
Not supposed to.
no, so we're, right, that's what he's referring to, is, so we learned a long time ago, if you marry too closely to your relatives, you can have birth defects. So we're very careful to spread out the genes. So you cannot marry someone from your same clan, which is a problem when you live in a small town because everyone's your clan. So you have to really, go out in the world and find a mate.
Okay, so, and then I just want to contribute. That was my first question. I want to contribute to the motion that you have been having, or the storytelling of what you are been telling with our panel. I'm very honored to be here from all the way Kenya, to be part and parcel of the Indigenous Community Forum, which is going to be held on Thursday next week. I think it will be just held in the same building, and I urge all of you to come. Then, to the message that you are sharing of loving, of sharing this indigenous knowledge to others. The most important thing is one, which call love, and then the other most important thing is to have this connectivity. Not try to be modernized more than yourself, like being west with the technology, and forget about the connection of humanity. That is why when you come to where I came from, it is not easy to recognize who is rich and who is not. This is because of the connection we have to each other. And this is also another time you need to spare a time to be inhuman, more than the time that you will be in your TV, in your phone, and this is just wasting it's wasting the soul of the energy that we get from the Mother Earth. And that is why when you go to every big cities, there is where you can find people who are homeless. When you come down to indigenous people and to the people, indigenous communities, they will be able to share one single shilling. When you have a shilling, or one single banana, you can share as a human. So I encourage all of us to fight for that freedom, that we will be there for others. And then, to come out of that, we have to face the fear. Don't escape from the fear. There's something that you will say, I fear this, never fear. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's great.
Love over fear. That is the message of the day. Who else out there?
I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so honored to be listening and learning from all of you. I am very passionate about biodiversity. So we live in the California Floristic Province, which is a biodiversity hotspot. So that brought me here. Originally, I'm from Mexico City. And I've been learning about the Kumeyaay and being divided by the border. So I felt like I needed to do something, and I've been trying to serve this community as much as I can. And I'm a professor in San Diego State University, and I teach about plants and diversity. And some of the things that I'm trying to teach them is the uses of plants. And some of the things that I want to pose the question is, how do we navigate? Like, I'm trying to do my best, right? But what's your perspective about what knowledge to share? Because in my mind, we should be all practicing, regenerative agriculture for a better food futures and environment. So, but when it comes to what can be shared, sometimes I feel a little bit confused, and I will appreciate some shares, some thoughts.
Do you want to start, Mirna? I thought you might have something to say on this. This is sort of in your area, but.
I don't think I'm the person, but in name of Dr. Carolina Gutierrez, she stopped sharing about native plants because a lot of people was using it without respect, like in beer and in different kind of things, and asking a lot to the communities and pushing a lot of the native communities in Baja about the knowledge. I want to do a beer, a new something, and I want to sell it in Ensenada. So Carolina started doing it and starting sharing about the uses of the invasive species. That's the reference that I have. And in my community, we are very careful. Also, I don't know if you know Paula Pilluan. She also stopped doing this because for the pressure with the communities and the uses of the native plants. And all the problems that we have with this white sage. So, for me, it's a very interesting question also because I feel confusing all the time, and we are very careful with protecting the knowledge. And also Carmen, my very good friend, she, a lot of people ask and they want to pay for like the recipes or something like that. So she feels very offended, how can I say, like
Offended.
And she stopped doing this. So that's why we are working on the documentary for, how can I say, like para sus hijos, for the
children.
Exactly. And she is very careful with the with the uses of the plants.
That's a great, please, but that's an excellent point, please.
I had an interesting discussion with Christina Jones. She's a soil scientist. We were in Santa Fe, and she was presenting a lot of things with Australia. And I said to her, in the U.S., especially in New Mexico, very brittle environment, savannas, the grasses were really high. And it was because of that symbiotic relationship with the migrations of animals, And of course, when the Navajos started grazing the sheep, it just, it became really robust. And so and then of course the buffalo across the prairies. So I said, what really happened in Australia? And he said, James, we didn't have grasses. She said, we had herbs. Herbs that Aboriginal communities would plant and would grow and would kind of pick and take care of it. There was a lot of protocols behind it. And I said, what happened? Well, she said, the Aboriginal people wanted the settler communities to come in and go through the rites of passage. Very few of them ever did. So a lot of that knowledge wasn't handed over. So there's some protocols involved in all indigenous communities that you have to enter into that space. Now, when you exchange plants with monetary currency-based economy, it's more about the transaction. It's not about a gift economy. So understanding those economies within those spaces is really important. So, even with elders, there are certain things that has to be exchanged in reciprocity. We were in Zuni, and Zuni is very traditional. So you're dealing with very traditional people and urbanized natives. There, we had a lady that I was saying, we need to do ceremonies around the corn again. We need to do this. We need to have new songs. Well, she went back to Zuni, and then she broadcasts the corn dance in the Zuni community. And she got reprimanded from the elders, the Kachina groups, and she came to me and she goes, I thought you said it was okay to share, Even in those communities, even tribal members have that sort of protocol that they have to follow in order to get into that sacred space. Because a lot of these plants required knowledge. It's not like the New Age where you enter into the space like a smorgasbord. You just eat whatever you want and then you move on. It has to be a determined discipline of that kind of economy, that it's very precious and there has to be a lot of reciprocity going on. And that's what I'm learning from doing a lot of medicinal plants. And I was saying this morning, was it with you, Adam? I said, right now, American people have to be healed. We have the worst gut in the world. It's because of the Roundup and everything else, that's been exposed, synthetic fertilizers. And so our guts are really messed up. We have leaky gut syndrome across, and nobody's really addressing a lot of that stuff. And we're very sick people. So it's going to take Indigenous people moving back into that space of drilling down the protocols and presenting the natural healing modalities back into this society. And I'm proof of that, I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for the natural stuff. And that was what I was pushing with United Healthcare and some of these big operations, healthcare systems, still pumping more synthetic drugs into our people. Yeah. We were talking about, she just started shadow boxing over there. It's like, hey, calm down, girl. But we used the medicine men and the herbal system as a part of the reimbursement for Medicaid. And that was really neat because now Indigenous people can have access to that. But you gotta go lightly. You gotta take the time, ask questions, be patient with the elders, before they even trust you enough to share this. You can't just go in there and get a book and, sign a book and go home and do that. That's more European colonization of medicine, herbs. So I'm just saying, be cautious and careful because these are really, right?
May I add to it?
Yeah, sure.
Please. I do think it's good to mention that we should be cautious and careful, but I was actually taught something slightly different from what's being shared, so I will just share the perspective of my teacher. And that is that we are living on this land here, and yes, it is Kumiai land, but we are living in relationship with these plants, and that we are not separate and outside of the plants. The plants need us to interact with them. And when I first started the work, I would tell people, unless you're Kumeyaay, do not harvest the sage. And I was reprimanded from 2 elders, actually, who said, don't teach that. We need to be teaching how to harvest the plants. Because when we teach the how, that's what shifts and changes that relationship from being extractive into being something that is reciprocal. And so most of these plants need human interaction. And if the education is done right, then hopefully you won't be viewing that plant as something that you can extract or make a recipe of or sell. You'll view it as a relative and someone that you want to interact with.
Yeah. Echinacea
Beautiful.
was taken from the holy people of the Lakotas, Swiss guys, that went in there. The holy elder shared a lot of this information. They extracted it and they started using it. Now it's in our cough medicine and all that. Never brought anything back to the tribe. So there's some healing that needs to be done on those levels.
Yeah.
just finish the idea. And Carmen told me the problem is not to take the plant. The problem is that we don't know how to ask for permission. And she teach me about the ¿cómo puedo decir? Honorable harvesting. So yeah, that's why.
Can I say something about that? This will be the last thing I'll share.
No, please.
I think it's a great moment to share. This is the main teaching from my teacher, and it was the main teaching from Jane Dumas, and that's ask permission, say a prayer, and set an intention.
The opposite of the extractive model in every way, in every sense. Did that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else have a question? Because we have 2 more amazing things to happen after the Q&A. I'm not going to tell you what yet, but any other questions before we move on?
Well, more than a question is it's an
Song? No.
But is all of you are amazing and very inspired, and also I'm looking also for guidance because I got the chance to go to the Brazilian Amazon in August, and I spent some time with the Yawanawa tribe, and they're very honorable and knowledgeable with plant medicine. But something that I noticed is they have a big gap with growing their own food. So a lot of people in the tribe, they still drink sodas and junk food and all the stuff. Plus they're situated very remote in the jungle. So here listening to you guys, it's like, wow, you're really into the technology, to getting the best from the land. So I wonder how we can make that connection to other tribes that, for example, they're very remote. They've gone through so many things politically, through history, and they got disconnected from that. So like I say, on one hand, they're very knowledgeable with plant medicine and for the body, but with food, not. And I know that's a situation also in Panama, in a lot of places in South America. So what you guys would say, how we can make that bridge happen, because I feel between communities, we have to pass on, help each other on that aspect.
Who wants to take a stab at that?
I can try.
Okay, please.
I think first, not problematizing the community for their state, but rather problematizing colonization. Because I think there's a lot of shame we carry as Indigenous peoples for not knowing our language, only drinking soda, having diabetes, having alcoholism, etc. When really that's not who we are. That's actually a direct reflection of the cruelty, which you heard him say some of the stuff they would do to our women in the concentration camps. You want water? Well, come to my barracks tonight and you can have water for your kids. That happened to our ancestors. And the men had to watch. They couldn't protect their women because they were at gunpoint. So that hurts the spirit of the man. Can you imagine your daughter, your wife, your sister? They did that to our men routinely, just beating their spirit down. So the men have to see it's not their fault. They were good. And we're okay as women, we're okay. And we're very resilient. One little thing like that ain't gonna stop us, you know? And as women, we need to see that's not our fault either. That was not a choice to go into the barracks. That was a child's gonna live or die. That's not a choice. And so remembering that these very same folks you're working with went through the same thing. Incredible amounts of suffering. 98% of Indigenous peoples are thought to have been wiped out by disease, massacre, etc., starvation. And one of the main ways is to cripple their food system, right? The oyster fishery in Chesapeake Bay, it's very clearly written in the records, keep the Indians away from the water because it makes them strong. So they knew by divorcing us from our foods, we would be more easy to conquer, and then giving us the alcohols, right? more easy to conquer. So we have to not blame ourselves and say the reservation system is a direct reflection of the trauma that various folks brought from their trauma, from what happened to them. My elder Phil Lane says, hurt people, and colonized people. But anyways, so then therefore the answer is to reconnect them with their foodways, right? So one program we're trying to kickstart is a Food Warriors Fellowship, where you shepherd and you guide the youth, or doesn't have to be youth, could be anyone, to come up with their own idea of how are they going to feed their community with traditional foods. It could be very small, like creating a garden box for the elders, or it can be, oh, I'm gonna interview this elder. It could be very small or very big, but helping shepherd them through the design process of creating a project to bring foods back to their peoples. And I think that's just one way to little by little support them, because they already have the answers in their hearts. It's not about giving them the answers, it's about helping them remember their own answers and develop those, and have a community where they meet regularly to come up with their own ideas. You know, the youth are so creative, to think of, let them dream and help to nourish those dreams. Yeah.
There's a book out that's called Dorito Effect. Wow. I highly recommend that book because it talks about McCormick sabotaging our taste buds. And so they're messing with synthetic, alteration of our senses, our nose, our taste. We get thirsty when we drink soda, so Doritos, What's really hot on the res is hot Cheetos. There's some countries, and I'm confession. In some countries, Cheetos is outlawed because of the dyes in there. There's something going on in the consumerism where our senses are being hijacked. Even though you get people on healthy foods, vegetarian, bad hunters, it takes about a year to change your taste. It takes about a year. We've managed to hijack a lot of vegans and vegetarians to eat meat in our farm because our meats are so good. And it's what is it called? A humane way that we've worked with them, and then we feed them really well. And so when you cut into this meat, the people are saying, "Oh no, you're not supposed to kill." Yeah, well, the way we're killing them, putting them in pens and really torturing them. I think a lot of the shooting might be related to that aggression of what we're eating in the meats. There's some connections there, but. Side trail again. The meats that we have on our farm have high good lipids, omega-3s. We're eating a lot of omega-6s. Of course, added to the leaky gut syndrome with oats and wheat that are sprayed so that they can be harvested at the same time. And so we're in this kind of dumbing down of our natural system. But what's really neat about our bodies is it's very sovereign. It'll recover if you give it the right ingredients, the right relationship, the right understanding, the right connection. We are disconnected to our food. We had a bunch of BIPOC, AIM was there, what did they call them? Equal justice people, social justice. They all met on our farm, and they said, James, fix us breakfast. So, I'm a cook, so I'm really enjoying biscuits and gravy and eggs and, the sausages that I make on the farm. And so we're diving into the plate, heart attack special, all these societally conscious activists, native activists, ready to shadow box. I said, stop. They look at the plate. Don't eat it. Don't eat the plate yet. I said, everything on that plate came from this farm. And how many in your activism can say that? So I think it's very prevalent that soda and all this stuff, we got to give them our alternatives. Poverty is one one thing they do, and that's it. But breaking that poverty is creating alternatives so they have a choice. And it's not going to happen overnight because it's slowly that education, that modeling, that, they sent out a bunch of, I don't know if they did with some of the tribes out here. During COVID, because they couldn't run it through the school system, they dumped a lot of the food on the res. Mm-hmm. And I saw cabbages and lettuces on the side of the road. And the food that they were giving out from the pantries was cardboard because of the synthetic fertilizers that are being used. And, you go down this path, it's all of us. We're all kind of in this movement of getting healthy again and healing. And these panels discussion is really key and important to begin that process of doing it for yourself first, which is really why we started the farm. Was Joyce and I were sick. I was driving all the time. I just had this movement. I'd eat donuts and coffee and it'll get rancid. I'd drive for miles, a couple hours, and I just did not feel right. And it's just a slow progression to where I was really sick and I didn't know what health was. And so when I started eating food again, I started coming out of it. Of course, I did binge now and then, but the process became fewer and fewer, and I became more and more healthier, and to where, I'm doing okay, knock on chair. Mm-hmm. But that's what I mean. It's Dorito effect. Look it up, read it. I think it's on Audible.
I just building up from that, I just want to say that historical trauma continues to have a huge negative impact on the physical and spiritual well-being of many indigenous communities. When it comes to statistics, type 2 diabetes, when it comes to cancer, when it comes to heart diseases, are the main health issues facing, for instance, Maori. They don't even make it to 60 years old. Mm-hmm. And in the highlands of Peru, we have biodiversity, and yet my people are experiencing food insecurity and malnutrition. So that food security is a paradox, and that's a key reflection of the historical trauma that has been happening. Having said that, we're seeing how our people are healing from that historical trauma by reconnecting with the land. And another book that I would suggest is the book by my amazing Native American sister, Charlotte Cote, One Drum on one hand and the Ciccarelli on the other, where she talks about how her community began the journey to heal by restoring the human-nature relationships. And also, needless to say, my book speaks about how Maori are taking control of the well-being and restoring their food systems and foodways, and the same with my people, and how this understanding of historical trauma and understanding that we have the tools and we have the our self-determination to lead a better future and build futures of our own making is something that continues to drive many indigenous communities across the world.
Thank you. Okay, so I did promise there's two amazing things that are going to happen next. First, Lila isn't just a doctor, an activist, and an educator, and an incredible speaker. She's also a singer and songwriter, and she has offered to sing a song for us here just before we close.
Okay. I think this is fitting song for us all, because we're, like you're saying, we're all Indigenous. We're not all Indigenous to where we stand, and that's an important distinction, but as long as we're honoring the local peoples, we can come into a place of belonging wherever we are. Okay. Indigenous people, shine your light, we are equal, yeah. I remember the days when our prayers were illegal. I remember the days when being Indian was lethal, yeah. Yeah, we had a rough past, but get ready for the sequel.
Get ready for the glorious comeback of our people. Oh, yeah. Rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. With forgiveness as my bow and my prayers as my arrows, pull it back and let it go. I watch them fly like sparrows. Have hope, have hope. With compassion as our shield and faith down to our marrow, we will walk the pollen path even when it gets narrow. Yeah, yeah. Resurrect, yes, you can bet that we seen the single mama raising children on the res. We seen domestic violence tear apart what we have left. We seen the alcohol take it all and leave us dead. We've seen the children take their own lives when they can't take the dread anymore. No, we can't take the dread anymore. Or no, I won't take the dread anymore. 'Cause we can't take the dread anymore. Yes, it's a war, but we've seen it all before. And now we know we can change it, 'cause that's why we were born. We know we are the ones that we have been waiting for. Yes, we are the ones that Grandma has been praying for. So rise up, all you warriors of love, all you answers to the prayers of our ancestors from above. I could feel it in my heart. Can you feel it in your blood? I could hear the seventh fire calling us to wake up. Pueblo hermoso, levántate, es nuestro tiempo. No tienes que esconderte más, porque ahorita es nuestro tiempo. This next verse is in Spanish to honor all the indigenous nations that live south of that imaginary border that has divided our continent that was once very much connected. Mujer indígena, tú eres tan sagrada y traigas medicina de tu suelo todavía. A pesar del abuso de tu cuerpo y tu tierra, respetamos tus ancestros y la suya cultura, hombre indígena. Tú eres honorable y yo veo la fuerza que todavía sobrevive. A pesar del abuso de tu raza venerable, yo respeto tus ritos, tus danzas, tus padres, guerreros del amor y guerreros de la paz. Sí, no vamos a escondernos más. We are warriors of love. We are warriors of peace. And we will not hide ourselves anymore. All nations rise, rise up, 'cause now's your time. We don't have to hide anymore, 'cause now's our time. Yay. Yeah.
That was beautiful. Okay, we only have one more person to hear from today, and it's Bobby Wallace. Where are you, Bobby? Bobby is a member of the Borona Band of the Kumeyaay Nation, and he's also an eco-justice activist, and he will close up this ceremony today.
Okay, enjoy. Nyach Bobby Wallace, Borona Band of Mission Indians. I'm a person that's left from the Kumiai Nation. There was up to like 30,000 of us at one time. And then there came a killing and left us only to about 700. And good to see you guys. Hey. You know, we are strong people. You know, we are strong people. And we need to keep going, and we need to press on. Here in San Diego, man, we're getting lots of stuff done. We're putting that flag up. They signed a resolution for this being unceded territory, and it is. We never gave it away. We are warriors. We are fighters. On November 5th was our anniversary down around the corner, around the hill, where we took care of the priest and some of their people. You know, we are strong, we are warriors, and we need to press on in this life. Lahont Jane Dumas. You know, a little story about her. She was a powerful lady, very powerful. And I got to befriend her before she left and traveled. And when she went to her home, I had given her a deerskin looking blanket. And they knew to call me right when she left. And I don't know if you guys heard this, Lacey, or not, but they called me and I went to spend some moments with her right after she left so I could carry her fire too. And the same with Leroy, and Lahont, Dennis Banks, you know, and I carry that fire and I want to share that fire with everybody because that's what I'm born for. Man, you know, I go and I work and I do things and I travel across this country and I probably have more miles on my feet than most anybody. And I've seen it all. I've seen clean water, I've seen bad water, I've seen good food, I've seen bad food. But these are the times where we're at the tipping point. Really, folks. Water is getting killed everywhere. We just cannot let it be. We have to stand up, we have to network, we have to keep doing things like this in order for our planet to survive. I love Mother Earth, I really do. Mother Earth has shown me some stuff. Honestly, when we took that water from this ocean to that ocean at the corner of Canada and Maine, we had the Haudenosaunee women, we had Apache, the Ne, and what was the other one? Man, when these ladies poured the water into that flat ocean, a surge popped up. And I just watched it and kind of just watched, and it came and got everybody's feet wet. And this is a true story. And these are the things that I have to tell because I saw it. Other people saw it. And it's a power of Mother Earth. Traveling across, my God, you guys, I've seen some of the most beautiful things. Some of the most beautiful things. And I'm kind of the person that if I don't see it, not gonna believe it, really. Mother Earth has shown me some real beautiful things. Real beautiful things like the lake up top of the mountains. Beautiful things like women surviving in this world with water. That's a beautiful thing because us guys were meant to live and die, but women bring life to this world, to Mother Earth. And without women and water, we're gonna go extinct. You know, we have to stand together. We have to be one. We have to fight the things that are bad. If I can go with my brother and stop the wall and sing and dance in Mexico, in California, if I can go with people and stop it day after day after day, everybody should be able to do something of equal value, really. Everyone, everybody here, never think that you're weak. You have to be strong. You have to keep doing these things. If you were not here, what would you be doing? Eating a donut and drinking some coffee? Maybe. But you're here for a reason. You're here to get a good message. You know, Ancestral Pathways, man, our people, and it's true, from up here by Palomar Mountain, we traveled all the way down to Ensenada, to San Quintin, and all the way out to the Big Water, you know, and it's part of a bigger group, the human language people that's giant. And if we can survive and we can be here today, we have to start thinking, man, 50 years ahead, 100 years ahead, 200 years ahead. And if we don't, we're not gonna be here. Our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, their grandkids are not gonna make it. And that is just the truth. You know, we need to be strong, we need to fight, we need to be with people like this. We need to share love and respect. You know, love and respect goes a long way, but we cannot be slouches either. We have to kick ass in everything we do, and we need to expedite it, really.
Yeah.
Really. You know, going and fighting against lithium. I know lithium's a new thing. Oh, it's so great. the non-reusable energy source. But that's BS, man. They're tearing up the water. It's got to be washed. They're killing it. And we're just going to stand by and let it happen? No, we can't. We have to be strong. We have to think about everything from the rock people, the tree people, everything, the birds, animals, the sky, everything. And it's going right now in front of our eyes. But I know this right here gives me some kind of hope. It makes me feel good to see good, honest people trying to do something for the better of all of us. So I hope you guys have a great day. And I want to say a little prayer. Maika, Utachla, wherever your gods are, I hope they're looking down upon us right now and know our true intentions of doing something good and doing something right. We pray that we can be strong. We pray that we can be just so strong to make right choices and do the right things in life. We're just a species on Mother Earth, and that's all we are. We're just an animal. We humble ourselves and we ask you to let us carry on another day. We need to think about the water. We need to think about the lands and everything that we see and we don't see upon Mother Earth. Mother Earth, we pray to you that you share your mercy with us. Please, Creator, please bless everybody here and their intentions. Nook no what? And really, you know, I do pray for all you guys. Man, I love every single person in this world. Might not like everybody, you know, but I'm truthful, and the Creator knows that I'm truthful. And sometimes might say things that offend people, but that's okay, because I'm just a guy, and I'm doing the right things, and I know it. So I appreciate all you guys. UC, I appreciate you guys, because usually when I come, I'm talking about all the bad stuff, like getting shot with a rubber bullet or something. But really, I appreciate you guys to let me come and share some good words and of truth. You know, we are going to survive. We will. All of us Native peoples, all of the colors of the medicine wheel, red, yellow, black, and white, we're all going to survive. But we have to do these kind of things to make it better. So you guys have a great day. I love all you guys. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. I don't need that. Thank you for coming and joining, and that is a beautiful way to end this day with heart and love.